Kevin, I'd love to ask you a few thoughts and questions on M&A. What do you think are the biggest cultural risks and opportunities that leaders face when they're going through an M&A?
Yeah, well, M&As and JVs and divestitures are all stressful moments for everybody. And that you're talking about a culture change, not just for the people being acquired, but for the company that is they're moving into. And what ideally the theory says you want to do is you want to find the best of both, right? Find the best of breed so that both of those cultures bring the best and create something new. The challenges are that sometimes what looks great on paper, as you're well aware, doesn't really translate into the reality. And the reality is sometimes that there are behaviors and norms in one organization that would be frowned upon by the other. And so what you need to do is identify what are the strongest points of each culture, but then also think about what are the problems and get them out on the table and talk about them. And that puts you in a much better position to start thinking, okay, what is that future state we want to work towards?
So Chris, one thing I know you're very passionate about is in a merger, an acquisition, or really any transformation in a business, sequencing of activities is really important. So talk through that a little bit.
Sequencing is so important. It sets you up for success. And maybe if I just talk about a recent healthcare program that we ran, a big merger and acquisition with thousands of employees. And we structured the program into 3 distinct phases. First phase was around closing day. So actually celebrating the 2 organisations coming together, but also working really hard to reassure people in those 2 businesses that we were going to do integration in the right way. The second phase was all around providing clarity and direction. So we worked with the leadership team to define their purpose, their ambition and their strategy. That enabled them to go out to the whole organisation and provide clear answers around why they existed, what they were trying to achieve and how they were going to get there. And then the third phase was around launching the new brand. So we'd done market scanning and decided that the 2 companies coming together had strong brands, but actually there was a real opportunity to rebrand, new name, new visual identity, new value proposition. So we launched the whole organisation. Critically, the thing that we did is not focus on a flash in the pan moment. So we didn't launch on just one day. We had a big launch day, yes, but we structured the following communications and engagement over a month. So following the launch, we also used cultural data and insights to look at where the cultural opportunities were to really push forward and strengthen and build momentum, but also where the cultural risks were, where the challenges were. And we were able to use data to pinpoint specific functions, teams, locations in the business where we could start to develop targeted interventions that move beyond communications to solve real business challenges and ultimately set that organisation up for growth and success. One of the questions that we hear from a lot of clients that we work with is, how do we build one organisational culture? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can be a little controversial on this, particularly when I'm speaking to people who are deeply steeped in HR and organizational transformation. We were recently asked by a client, a big energy company. We have exploration, and we have generation, and we have transmission, and we have customer service, and all of these parts of our organization have different cultures. And we know we're being told we've got to have a strong culture. And our answer back to them was, well, what problems is it causing? Is it a problem? And in fact, it really wasn't. That leads us to the idea that this monolithic culture that we're trying to create within an organization is a program. And it's not a program. It's an ongoing effort. Every time somebody joins, every time somebody leaves an organization, every time you make a merger or a disposition, the culture is going to change. External technology will hit. It'll change the culture. Politics will happen. Economic change will happen. It will change the culture. So what you've got to do is think about, well, what are the elements of the culture that are really core to who we are and are absolutely immutable? But then think about, well, how do those apply to different parts of the organization? Because it's going to mean something different to a call center, a digital contact center employee than it is to somebody exploring an oil field. And it's going to mean something very different to somebody operating in a power plant, to somebody running the finance in the back office. So I think we need to destroy the myth of this one culture. Can you have one company? Absolutely. Can you have one way of doing things? Absolutely. But culture needs to breathe. You can prompt it and you can try to change it, but you can never really control it, and you shouldn't try to.
So divestment or demerger, incredibly complex, difficult scenarios and situations that businesses face. You've got a group of people who are staying, a group of people who are potentially moving on. How do you tackle that challenge?
I think it always depends, but My advice would be for the organization that's being spun off, one of the things you talk about a lot is communicate like you're the new company. And I think that's really important because the past has a lot of baggage, there might be resentment and fear and a lot of emotions. So one of the ways to combat those emotions is say, we need to not be mired in the past, and what we really need to do is focus on the company we want to be, what's going to make us great. Because the only thing that's going to make us great is everybody pointing in that direction and doing what needs to be done to make this new venture a success. And it's better for everybody when they do that. The flip side is the company that was being left or remaining behind. And the same thing actually really applies there, which is we're actually a new company now. There's been a big change. Maybe it was traumatic. Maybe they're grateful that the changes happened. But again, communicate the vision of the new co. Because we're different, we're new, and that's what's going to make us succeed. Not to dwell too much on the past, although it's really important. So Chris, in the world of M&A and transactions, JVs, different animal. What are your thoughts?
Very different animal. Again, very complex, and you're limited in terms of what you can actually say and the engagement you can have, obviously because of legal restrictions. So there are some simple hints and tips and practical things that we've done in the past before the deal has been announced and closed. And that could be as simple as getting employees from the different companies just to film themselves and talk about what excites them about the company that they'll ultimately be going into the JV with. So you're starting to build that sense of familiarity, but also excitement. But I think it's also really important with a JV when the deal has closed that you do two things. So first off, you talk about the context and you explain to people, why has this JV happened? What are the benefits from both sides? What are we seeking to achieve through this JV? The second piece is clarity. So ensuring that every single employee in the newly merged business understands, again, why do we exist? What are we trying to achieve? How are we going to get there? But also, what's my role? And I think taking the time and the effort to explain to people that we need employees with us, helping us on this journey, and their contribution is incredibly valued and important in terms of us ultimately being able to achieve our ambitions.